Not enough.
My name is Enrica Jang. I am a writer and editor-in-chief of Stylo Media. We are a very small independent publisher. Just newly moved to Baltimore just this past year. And very, very excited to be here. This weekend is especially exciting because Baltimore Comic Con and the Baltimore Book Festival are going back and forth. So if you see these like whirling blobs just going past your face, it's us running back and forth between the two shows. We're really excited to see people here, and we were told that if we talk, more people will come. So, but I'm a light speaker. If anybody needs me to repeat something or to speak up, just come up here closer, and I will repeat it. Thanks, Kim. I'm going to let my fellow panelists introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about what they're doing, and then I'll moderate, and we're just going to have a discussion, and then open it up to you guys to ask us questions. All right? Sound good?
My name's Enrica Schultz. I'm a writer. I've done some independent work. I've also done some work with Dynamite and Marvel. And I've actually also worked with Enrica's Stylo Media on several of the great anthologies that they do, and I will pass it on to the lovely Jennie.
My name is Jennie, and I don't think, is my mic working? Okay, I can't hear myself.
You can really eat it.
Get really close. I'm a writer, comic creator. I also teach writing comics and graphic novels in Boston at Grub Street, which is an independent writing center. My main project for comics is called Flutter. It's about a girl who shapeshifts into a boy to get her dream girl, and then the chaos that comes with pretending to be someone she's not. And Volume 2 of Flutter comes out today, and we have copies over here.
How many creators are in the crowd here? You're a writer, you want to be a comics artist, you want to be a comics writer. There's just an interest in comics here. Cool. There you go. Pretty cool. I was going to start this panel just kind of opening up a discussion about one of the premises of, well, one of the conceits of this panel is that there are more women in both the market and as creators in comics and graphic novels than ever before. And that's just a numbers, there's a numbers game. There are more people in comics and graphic novels than ever before. It's easier now to get your work out, whether you're a self-publisher, independent publisher, and it's internet has made it possible to sort of move into the marketplace, make a loud noise, get people to hear stories that they may have been drowned out before. So that being the case, women obviously are a very important part of everything, but they're a very important part of this market, and as creative voices, more are emerging, whether previously marginalized or whether even just coming into sort of mainstream, giving a new perspective on beloved characters. And it's just opening up, the world is opening up, especially in publishing. So I wanted to ask my panelists to talk about how they started, and then follow up with a sort of a question of how being a woman shaped the experience of first entering this market. Is it something that you thought about? Is gender something that people made you aware of? Is it something that informs the stories that you tell? Or what is it? Talk about how you started and then your experience as a woman, as a new voice on the scene.
I got into comic. I grew up, like a lot of people, reading comics, and then kind of went away from that in high school and college, found my way back to it reading graphic novels. And I've always written, I've written plays, songs, screenplays, and I was working on Flutter as a short story or a novel, and she's a shapeshifter, and the prose in that novel short story form felt too static for me. And then I tried it as a screenplay, and I couldn't get my brain around bad special effects. So at the same time, I was reading graphic novels. I was reading Fun Home, and I was reading Brian K. Vaughan's Why the Last Man. And I was like, I'll just try it as a graphic novel. And I had no idea of even how to get into the business, how to write a comic. And I took a class at Grub Street, this independent writing center in Boston. It's a class I'm now teaching 5 years later. And I learned the ins and outs of writing comics, how to collaborate with an artist, how to find an artist, and everything just kind of fell into place. And I didn't think about being a woman in comics because I was still brand new to the whole format until really I started going to comic conventions and exhibiting at them. And then it was how people treated me differently. I felt because I'm a woman. I would get approached. I think that happens to a lot of women in comic conventions. There was rarely a convention where I didn't get hit on, so that made me feel kind of vulnerable. And it's interesting because in Flutter, Lily, she shapeshifts into a boy, and she's treated differently as a boy than she is as a girl. So my experience at comic conventions, I felt like I was treated differently as a girl. I would share tables with male comic creators, and just the way people would react to their work versus mine was interesting.
I got into comics, like Jennie said, reading comics. I think we all started reading comics when we were younger, and I got into comics because I was working at an art studio that was doing comics, and at the time I was working as an animator for the Astonishing X-Men motion comic, the gifted one of it, and it sort of reignited my love of comics. And I've always written, I've always liked telling stories. Like Jennie, I've written screenplays and all kinds of stuff that sort of sat. I don't know if you have the notebooks in your closet with like tons of story ideas and stuff. So it just all sort of sat aside, and I never thought of it as a viable venue to tell a story. While working at the studio and working on other people's comics, I thought, oh, why not? Let's start putting some of it, put it in a comics form and put it out there. I agree with Jennie very much about going to conventions and being treated differently as a woman. My husband comes to a lot of conventions with me, comes to most of the conventions with me, and what usually happens is people come up to the table and look at him directly and just say, oh, are these your comics? And he says, no, and he points to the banner that has, my name on it. He says, no, they're her comics. I'm the booth babe. And people just sort of take a moment of, oh, women write comics. Yeah, there's like 5 of us in a row here. So it is very interesting to see the dynamic between how people treat you differently. I think amongst creators, for the most part, I think people are pretty cool, or at least for the most part in my experience, I've been pretty lucky that the creators for the most part are pretty cool. But sometimes fans can be a little polarizing, is that the word?
Can be.
Yeah.
Controversy?
Yeah. I think fans can sort of do that and seem surprised, even though there are more people doing comics, and not just independent comics, but mainstream comics. A lot more women involved in the creator roles.
I started in comics as an intern. I was a writer. I wanted to get into editing. But I'm also a creator. And I got to intern in Marvel Comics and work in the X office. Loved comics from when I was a kid, so this was a dream come true to be up on Comics Mountain and see how it was all done. One of the best companies in the country. And everything that I did after my internship ended was about proving myself to get back there. Not just as, I wanted to prove myself in the market, but I really wanted to prove that I had the chops to get back up on the Comics Mountain, prove that I was just as good as everybody that was up there. But the bigger names are, at the time, this was, about almost 6 or 7 years ago, the bigger names predominantly male. So when you're trying to get up into that top tier, that top echelon, you really are trying to be one of those guys. You're trying to get in with those guys. And part of the business, any kind of business, whether it's publishing or anything else, is there's a community that you're trying to enter into. And some of the ways that people kind of self-segregate in a way in social situations when you're trying to connect, not just as a creator, but as a person with the people that matter, the editors that matter, the other creators that matter, in a social setting. As a woman coming in to that level of business, it gets a little bit strange, especially if a ton of the socializing is in a bar after the convention and a show, everybody's relaxing, and then a woman comes up to you in a bar and says, hey, I'd like to show you some of my stuff, and they're looking funny like, what kind of stuff are you talking about? So having to clarify your role and prove yourself every day, that you get a little bit, it's easy to get a little defensive sometimes, or get a little bit on edge, and then you start to wonder about the choices that you're making as a creator, as a storyteller, what's commercial, what's going to work. And these are kind of issues that are starting to change how I look at the business, or change, especially as Erica mentioned, fans are coming in that are getting much more vocal about what they want to see in the representation, and what they want to see in the stories about women, or about just in class. People are starting to be very vocal on social media about, asking questions, making creators sort of sit back a little bit and think as they're going through. And that can be a very positive thing, but it can also be a little scary as a creator to go in and put yourself out there, and anything that's controversial, you got to be ready. You got to be ready to take the hit. So that's, as a woman, that's kind of informed my experience as a publisher, as a writer, as a creator who wants to get into a top tier of this business.
You had said something about social media just now, which I think is interesting, is that, I don't know, I know you and I talk to a lot of people on social media, and I know Jennie does as well. I noticed that social media has really opened up the fans' interactions with creators. It's a lot easier for fans to interact with creators not having to come to conventions, because a lot of people have like Tumblrs and stuff like, oh, ask me a question, and then on things like Tumblr and stuff like that. So, fans being vocal and saying, I want more female characters, I want more characters of color, I want more this, fans being more vocal, it's no longer, Marvel or DC or whoever just sort of standing back and doing what they're doing, and it's just, oh, well, the fans will just buy it because it's, you've got Marvel or DC on it. Now the fans are really turning around and saying, this is what we want, and if we're not getting it from you, we're going to find some other place to get it, which is usually independent comics, or even the smaller publishers, or like Action Lab is doing stuff, even smaller publishers, but they're not going directly to Marvel or DC, because if Marvel and DC aren't giving them what they want, they're going to find it somewhere else, as opposed to just, oh, well, I'll take what I can get. So the field has opened a great deal, and the expansion of women as creators has helped that a lot.
I do think that because we're women, in some ways we're more approachable in comic conventions, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, fans do talk to us, and I've had great conversations about comics, and fans, they really are helping make an impact and shape things. And just on a small level with Flutter, when I put Volume 1 out 2 years ago, a lot of the feedback, as a writer, you want to listen to stuff that resonates with you when you're getting feedback. You don't want to listen to everything because it'll drive you crazy, but sometimes the fans can make you think about something in a different way. Like, Lily shapeshifts into a boy to get a girl, and there were fans who were like, well, why does she have to shapeshift into a boy to get a girl? She doesn't, but that's the journey that, I learned that was something that I needed to address, but it was also that, I don't know, the fans, they were like, well, she's kind of being a jerk, right? Running around pretending to be this guy, and totally duping this girl, and so that got me to think about it, because I didn't think about Lily being a jerk, like pretending to be someone she wasn't. Is this really like jerky, douchey thing to do, for lack of a better word, right? So really in Volume 2 I addressed that. I make Lily accountable. I make her see, wow, I was really a jerk, pretending to be this guy, pretending to be someone I'm not. So it was a way that the fans, it can be a really positive thing. They can really get you thinking about things in different ways and on different levels, and you can bring that to your writing. And I think as a woman, I do find fans can talk to me, whether it's social media, whether it's at comic conventions, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, I think it kind of actually backs us into another part of the panel discussion, which is, so as more women are coming into the market, these voices are getting louder and varied, and it's an exciting time. What have you learned about your what have you learned from fellow female creators? How is the market changing? Why are these voices important to you as a creator, looking at the field?
so much of what I've learned in comics I've been from these two wonderful, talented women. I'm not kidding. They've taught me so much. They've been in it longer than I have. They're so talented and just multifaceted. So I've learned so much from you. But why I'm pausing because I've learned so much about the business and printers to use and the publishers to approach, how to handle yourself at comic conventions, and so it isn't anything that's really about being a woman necessarily. I mean, we've shared similar experiences. We've all had similar experiences at comic conventions, but what I love is how giving you guys are of information. It's very selfless, and I think that is maybe something. I mean, by and large, the comics community, because I also work in traditional publishing. I have a young adult novel. I have an agent and all that, and that's a much harder business to break into, and people are less giving of information. They don't. It's not that they don't want you to succeed, but they're not as open. And the comics community really is open and sharing information, giving you what you need. It's just a very selfless community and industry, in my experience, compared to other industries. But even more so, women creators are even 10 times more giving and selfless. It's pretty amazing.
I think that for the most part, the women creators that I've spoken with and that I've been fortunate to interact with have been very, like you said, very selfless, very forthcoming with information. I mean, we all have different experiences. I didn't know where I was going to get something printed. I spoke to the two of you, and you're like, oh, you could use my printer. Oh, talk to this guy. So we're very open about sort of raising everybody up, helping each other out. Thank you very much, by the way. That's very kind of you to say.
It's all true.
But yeah, we're very much into helping each other. Oh, well, you know what? Maybe you should talk to this editor and things like that. I'm not going to say that I haven't gotten that from male creators. That male creators haven't been as forthcoming, but I think that other female creators recognize the struggle that we have. And either whether they're still going through it or they've overcome it, they recognize it and say, look, I understand exactly what you're going through. This is the same bridge that I've had to cross. Let's either cross it together, let me help you along, let me see if there's any information that I can give you that'll make it a little bit easier. And like you said, I mean, it's also, when you're self-publishing, it's not just, writing your story and passing it off. It's coordinating with printers and talking to different comic conventions and talking to different comic shops and see if they're gonna carry your book. I mean, there's the fun part, the creative part, but the business part is really this enormous, multi-moving part situation that it blows your mind. So to be able to have a sounding board, whether it's other independent creators or retailers or somebody, just to give you some ideas on how to navigate this. That's really great. So I've been very fortunate, especially with these lovely ladies, but with also some other creators that I've spoken with. So
my personal experience is I tend to back into things too, because I had this idea about the club that I needed to try to climb into. I was very hesitant, and this is terrible to admit. I didn't go to women for advice or help. I would look to, just instinctively in this way, sort of look to professional males in the field that I thought could help me. And it's only after doing this for 6 years that I'm starting to find that sort of the network of female creators is a revelation to me. It sort of seeing the field rise, seeing so many women become high-profile artists, not doing what I thought was necessary in the beginning, which was kind of being commercial and trying to appeal to the most amount of people. But seeing women be confident in telling their stories, sticking with the idea that people do want to hear their stories. That has taught me, and has been most informative in what I need to do. Even just carrying my own business in the last couple of years. And so that's an ongoing, wonderful process for me. And some really wonderful friendships with fellow creators has come out of that. And so, yeah, this is new. This like girls hanging around. This is a cool thing.
Well, it's also when I first got a table at a comic convention like 4 or 5 years ago, there weren't as many women as there are now. Like when I was at C2E2 in Chicago in April, Enrica was next to me, and then next to her was a woman, and then on the other side of me was a woman creator artist. So it's just rapidly increasing. So you have more and more women to share these experiences with than even 5 years ago.
I think that the idea about self-publishing and that, and I'm going to say with the internet and with print on demand and things like that, publishing your own work is easier. I mean, it's still a very arduous process, but it is easier in the sense that it is an attainable thing. And because of that, I think more creators, women and men, you know, more creators in general, are more apt to say, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. It's no longer the Marvel, DC, Dark Horse field. I mean, there's plenty of other ways now for people to get out there. And I think that conventions themselves as well, with things like, I know Heroes Con does like Indie Island and things like that. And you know, Artist Alley here, conventions opening up space for new independent voices that may not have had the gall to turn around and say, you know what, I'm going to do this, because there are these opportunities out there. I also think like things like message boards, like people go on message boards and say, you know, I'm putting out a comic. Do you have a printer? Do you have any advice? Should I use InDesign to lay it out? You know, all these like little things. I think as a whole, we've sort of opened ourselves up to helping each other out, because we know that it's kind of a tough field overall. You know, not everybody's going to be writing for Marvel and DC. I mean, there's just, like you said, it's just numbers. It's a limited amount of people, you know, limited amount of spots.
Well, let's talk about, so it's come from a varied experience. So, independent publisher, independent writer, but you have worked for Big Two. Like all of us have dabbled in sort of, you know, commercial interests as well as the independent kind of interest. So as a woman, giving advice, it's our turn to give advice to this next generation. You've got someone let's say you see they've got an incredible spark and talent, and you want them to cultivate their voice, and you want to encourage them to sort of get out there. Do you have any quick and dirty tips that you would fire off at the cocktail party and sort of say, listen, you're starting, you're getting ready, the market's ready to hear from you? Do you have any?
The first thing would be, don't be too focused on what the market wants, because that's going to change, and write the book or create the book that you want to see on your bookshelf. Also, I have a young adult novel that features a transgender teenage boy, and I went through a period of time where I almost didn't publish that book because I'm not a trans individual. And I had done a ton of research. I worked with a transgender teenage boy on it, consulted with him, made sure I got all the details right, but there's this fear that's really, really increased about writing the other, something that you are not, and I think it cuts down on the diversity that we see in books, because it's still a predominantly male business, so guys are writing you know, what they know, and then you've got the women creators who, there's this fear to stick to what you know, but as long as you are creating a human, not a character, but a three-dimensional human, and you stay true to that, and you're not afraid that they're flawed. I mean, there's this big push, strong female characters, write strong female characters. Enough of it. I mean, I love that. I have that t-shirt. I love it, but we need flawed strong. We need women who are strong but also flawed. Like we can't be afraid to write the flaws, and we can't be afraid to write the other. Just stay true, create human characters, and write what you want. Instead of writing what you know, write what you're obsessed with. Because if you're writing, whether it's a comic, a graphic novel series, or a novel, you're talking about months, maybe even years of writing. So it needs to be something that keeps you up at night, that you're just obsessed with. That's the only way you're going to see through to all the revisions, all the editing, and that would be my advice.
I would say do your best to surround yourself with people who will love you, even though you are going to turn into a raging lunatic, an absolute raging lunatic. If we're not actually mentally ill, we're pretty close. It's going to be, like you said, it's going to be months, definitely months, if not years. I mean, people work on these creative projects for a very long time. I mean, my husband jokes, he says, you know, we've never had a honeymoon because we went from getting married to him starting a business to me doing this, and now, oh, well, we're going to San Diego. Yeah, San Diego isn't a vacation. San Diego Comic-Con.
San Diego Comic-Con.
San Diego Comic-Con is work. You know, I would say surround yourself with people who understand that this is something you have to do. Like Jennie says, be obsessed with it. It's something that you have to do. It's something that it is your compulsion. It is your core. There's no other thing that you can do in this world but that. And if that is the way you feel, then that is what you have to do. If you say, you know, I can put it on the shelf for like another 6 years and I'll just pick it back up, then it's not your core. If it's something like you said, every morning I wake up and I think I gotta write down the story idea, or every night you're going to bed and you're like, oh man, you roll over and you've got a piece of paper on you know, the side of the bed and you just jot down ideas in the middle of the night. That, you just do it. And like she said, don't write something because you want it to be commercial. Write it because it's true. It's true to you. It's true to the character that you're creating.
Your editor will make it commercial.
Yeah. Well, that's the editor's job, is to make it commercial. But write something that's true, and write something that you really feel, and write something that you're going to cry every single day about, because I cry every single day about it. Because I call her on the phone and cry every single day about it.
Tears of joy, right?
Ruin my makeup. No. The advice I would want to impart, just having been on both sides of the table now at this point, having been creative for a very long time, having been an editor, and something about, you know, having a little bit of power over people. It's tempting to kind of want to mold them and shape them into my image, and I hope. I'd like to think that I'm much more professional than that, and I've come to appreciate the artists that come to me, the creators that come to me, put their work at my doorstep, and give them the respect that they deserve. And so I think that the advice that I would want to give a young female creator coming into this business, coming into deciding to make comics or graphic novels or any kind of creative endeavor, I would say that look for the people who will afford your work respect. They may not like it. I mean, not everybody's going to like your stuff. But as people, we can tell when we're being treated with respect. And people will treat you the way you let them treat you. So coming in as a creator, you don't want to be, I am a diva. You don't want to be a diva. I am a diva. But you do sense, you can sense when your work is in the right hands. You can sense when the people who are going to shape this creative project with you and for you, that they have a sense of who you are, they have a sense of the story that you're trying to tell. And if the gut's not there, and you're not going to be proud of the work once it's out there, that's the stuff of character. That's your test of character as a creator, as just a human being, like female, male, transgender, it doesn't matter. As a test of a human being, put out work that you respect, find the people who share your vision, and that's the work that endures. That's the work that lasts. And then, you know, again, someone respecting you is not the same thing as liking everything that you do. And those two things are not tied. But if you do trust the people that you're on this journey with, it's a great ride. So.
I do have to say one thing about, you were talking about editors, people coming to you and sort of giving you a chance to help them get the best out of things. And one thing, I was having a conversation with another artist, and one thing that he said was very interesting. He said, editors need to be the curator of the talent, you know. Editors need to say, okay, you've got something raw here, and you've got something really good here. Let's just mold it and shape it just a little bit more. And, you know, some people think, oh, a good editor, I hand in a script, and the first draft is like, this is great. But like you said, I mean, if somebody likes it and doesn't find anything wrong with it, there's probably something wrong with it and they're just not saying. And I know this, and I knew this straight away, just because my husband reads all my scripts, and the worst cries are usually after he reads all the scripts and I get it back and it looks like a crime scene because he's just like, red. I was like, no more red pen for you, honey. We take the red pen away. But you know,
Stuff him in there.
Not this week. But an editor taking it and saying, this is really good. Now let's just take it just a little higher. You're here. I know you got here. You just push it a little more. And I've worked with Enrica on several anthologies, in a couple of different capacities. And she always says, you know, this is a good script. We have a good start. Now let's advance it just a little bit more. And instead of dictating things, a good editor will suggest things. And basically, a good editor will stroke the creative's ego enough to make the creative think, oh, I came up with this wonderful idea. You're so great. You're so great. Now do this. You know, but I mean, that's what a good editor does. A good editor really allows the creative to be as good as he or she can. And gives them the freedom, but also sort of reins them in. Because, like I said, creatives are mostly crazy people. So we'll just take it like all the way over there, and then you know, a good editor will be like, no, wait, 2 steps back, 2 steps back. Okay, we're good.
You also work on something for months or even years as a writer, so you get to a place where you're sick of looking at it, and so you want an editor who knows that, gets that, but can push you and nudge you to try just a little harder. Like with A Boy Like Me, my young adult novel, I was so sick, and that sounds terrible to say, but you've written it, you've revised it, you've done draft after draft, you've read it a million times, you've read it out loud, you've read it out loud to your girlfriend and your friends. And so you get an editor who's like, you know, Jennie, you just need to add these couple scenes. And it's the last thing you want to do, but you need that person to come in at that stage when you're so sick of looking at it and just give you that nudge to make it even better.
Open things up for questions. You guys have any questions about anything we've talked about or anything that you anticipated? You came here with burning questions. You just have to know.
I have a question for you. Where did you get your blouse? Rainbow. Okay. Is that just a Baltimore store?
No, it's everywhere.
Oh, it's everywhere?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's really nice. It looks great, by the way. It's really nice. That was the only question. Well, you said that you wanted to be, that you were interested in this stuff, right? You asked if anybody was a writer. Yeah.
Creator.
Okay. Well, everybody's, we're all students of life.
Have you thought about writing graphic novels, writing comics? Oh, yeah. Write what you love.
Sorry? You didn't start writing yet, so you have a story.
Well, I think the key is to just kind of get out of the way of it and let the story tell you what it wants. And once you find the right way to tell it, and just exploring with these different formats. And then if you do decide to write a comic graphic novel, keep fleshing out till you figure out, is it an indie? What kind of world would it look like? Would it be more of like a superhero thing? Would it have more of an urban feel? And then you walk around comic conventions and look for artists' work that kind of looks like how you want your comic to be. Because that's, I mean, how so many people meet artists, because they're so open to being pitched ideas and working with up-and-coming writers. So, but when you're a writer and you write in different formats, I think the key is to just do enough writing and kind of listen to where the story wants to go and get out of the way of it and find the right format for it. And when you do, that just kind of falls into place, everything else.
All my characters are voices in my head, and I know that's probably not the most wise thing to admit to. But all my characters are voices in my head, and some of them will not shut up and will not stop screaming until I get out a piece of paper and I write. And once I do that, I give them enough attention. Yes, you're so lovely, you're so wonderful. Yes, now move in the back. The toughest thing is when you have a deadline, and being self-published, you have to give yourself self-imposed deadlines because like Jenny said, it'll take months, it'll take years. If you don't have a deadline for you, then that thing's never going to come out. You're going to put it to the side, and you're going to be like, things are really, I've got so much to do this weekend, I'm not going to write. So I guess it's good that I'm in Stylo, that because I will have people screaming in my head saying, you haven't written 5 pages about me, and I'm really pissed at you. And I'm just going to keep saying la 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 until you sit down and write. And so, it was like 2.5 hour drive down here this morning, and somebody started screaming in my head, and my husband's driving, and I'm like, damn it! And I have my writing scribble in my book. But yeah, you have to be true to them. And sometimes I feel like I kind of have to edit them, because sometimes they want to go in a really weird direction. But at the same time, you have to have your vision. And outlines, if you want to talk about process, for me, outlines are really, really good. I know a lot of people don't do outlines. A lot of people just try to jump to script. I try to do outlines, and I start very macro, Okay, I start big and go small, because I don't know words. I start big and I say, this is a 6-issue story arc, and this is what's going to happen. And then I take that outline and I say, okay, I sort of just cross lines and say, okay, that's going to happen in issue 1, and that's going to happen in issue 2, and then I take that little section that's just issue 1, and I say, okay, if it's going to be a 1 issue, maybe it's going to be 24 pages. So then I blow it out a little bit, and then I go, that'll happen in page 1 and 2, and and I just keep going little by little, and just sort of start honing each page and I'm sorry to keep knocking your water, honing each page down and such, to make it to where it's manageable. A lot of times when you say, I have this great story idea, but it's so big, it's overwhelming. If you write it down just put it down on 1 page, whether it's typed or handwritten, you put it down on 1 page, you can read that 1 page, and that makes it a little more manageable. And then you say, okay, I'm going to take this little bit, and I'm going to take this little bit, and I'm going to make this little bit 1 page. And that makes it manageable. And it just keeps working that way. And it sort of allows you to wrap your head around it. Because if you turn around and you say to yourself, this is going to be a 24-page book, then you go, I have to write 24 pages? I haven't written a 24-page paper since college. What am I going to do? So, that's what works for me. Everybody is completely different. That just happens to be what it allows me to keep things organized. But, I don't know, do you guys work the same, or, what's your process?
I don't outline.
Okay, well,
yeah,
but
I don't jump right into a script either. I do really long character biographies, so, what's in my character's fridge, what was in their fridge when they were a kid, what's their favorite item of clothing, things like that, so that I know the characters really, really well, or I think I do, and then I start writing, and then I realize I don't know them so well. One thing, if you want to write comics or graphic novels, you want to find an artist that is really enthusiastic about your project, and I knew I had the right artist for Flutter, because Jeff McCumsey is the artist for Flutter, wanted to read all of those character bios. He wanted to see them all. I have no idea if he read every page, because there's pages and pages, but he wanted to see them, and that was a sign that he was the one, because it can be kind of like dating, finding any kind of collaborator, whether it's a band or an artist in a project. And something I think too, in terms of writing different kinds of things and hearing voices in your head. Because as a writer, you've got a lot of ideas, and they can all be screaming at you, and I tend to pay attention to the one that's the loudest, but also the one that's the most feasible to get done, that can bring the most gratification soonest, and then you go on to the next project and the next project. And I tend to actually work on 2 things at once, which a lot of writers will tell you to work on 1 thing at a time, but I like 2 things at once in different formats, so a graphic novel or a comic, and then like prose. Because when I hit a wall with one, I can then put that aside, let it marinate, and work on the other one for a while. That's kind of my process.
In terms of process, as an editor, kind of taking a look at new creators' work that sort of delivers me, I feel that it doesn't have an outline. I tend to space out because as the editor accepting work, if someone thinks that they're sort of holding a story back from me or going to surprise me with the ending when they're pitching something to me it feels like they don't know where their story is supposed to go. So when I'm accepting pitches, when I'm looking at pitches, I'm looking for that organization. I'm looking to know that the creator knows where they're going and they're going to take me there. And I'm looking for a creator that I trust to take me on this journey, and so that when I finally see the work, the readers are going to be surprised. I feel like they're in the hands of the master, as opposed to, hey, yeah, I'm going to throw some stuff at you and surprise. When I'm creating, when I'm writing, because I value outlines, because I value that structure in terms of completing stuff, it's that math problem again. It's line by line. You number a piece of paper from 1 to however many pages you think you're going to have, and then you see the story there, and you write the ending first as you craft how to get there, and as you build something to get there. So that's my creative process in terms of scripts lend themselves to that kind of structure where the prose writing I do is all over the place. It's spaghetti on a wall, and then I try to find them.
Just curious, when you guys outline, how close do you stick to the outline? Is there a point where you're always veering off and you want to go a different way?
Depends on how loud the voice is.
This woman is going to sleep in my house tonight. I'm a little worried.
I slept in your house before.
I didn't know about the voices in Enrica.
I'm worried.
Locks on the door. Again, I think it's scripting. I think when you are looking at a comic script, when you're looking at even film scripts, that kind of thing, there's only so much real estate. So you need the structure because you're constructing something that can fall apart so very easily. Right.
I think for me, it's that committing to an outline on paper. I do like to use sometimes, especially with a novel, index cards, and I put a scene on each index card, which you can also do with comics, and then you can like rearrange things or tear up things.
My husband's like trying to get he bought me this giant box of index cards and all these push pins, and he's like, look at I'm moving my poster out of the way so we can put your this brand new corkboard on the wall. I'm like, I can't do that. I throw darts at it. It doesn't work for me that way.
That's funny. I think the key is, finding what works for you, because there's that thing of you need to write every day. That works for some writers. It doesn't. I know writers with book deals and who don't write every day. They write on weekends.
Because they're not disciplined.
Right. Well, or you're supposed to write at the same time every day, and that does work for some people. I'm more of a night owl, so I write at night. Some people write in the morning before the rest of the world's awake, so they're not interrupted. So it's about finding what works for you. It could be any combination of these things.
We are down the last 4 minutes. Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
Yes, I'm interested that women are coming into the field here. Are there any new kinds of themes that women are bringing to this area that maybe men haven't done?
Do you think that there
Or are you just doing the same kind of things the men are doing?
do you think, Jennie, because you've worked with, Jennie has an LGBT book, Flutter's an LGBT book, and do you find that more women are going into the LGBT areas and dealing with those topics as opposed to more men, or I don't know?
I think they're leading the way, like leading the men to that. The artist I work with on Flutter, I'm an out lesbian, and he's a straight guy married to a wonderful woman that they're expecting their second kid, and he never worked on anything LGBTQ. But when I approached him, he was very happy to do so. Also, my publisher, 2158, it is run by some wonderful guys in Philly, and my book was the first LGBTQ book that they've worked with, and since then they've worked with others done by men. So I think women are leading the diversity, and not necessarily just LGBTQ, but leading the industry towards more diversity in characters and different sexual orientations and things with gender, definitely.
Just as sort of a general observation, I think that as soon as it became okay in conversation to start talking about waxing, in polite conversation, as soon as that was okay, suddenly the market was open to just about anything. When people could actually talk about body hair and how women get rid of it. I think it was open up, anything goes, and people want to see. It's kind of like being able to look into places that used to be kind of hushed or shadowed, or you don't pick up the skirt, you don't do any of this stuff. And I think that when these conversations become much more exciting or much more, it's okay to talk about them, then people want to talk more and they want to read more about stuff outside their experiences. And I think that's where the sort of discussions around femininity that used to be not okay to really talk about. That's why the conversation is open, and that's why the market is open, and that's what's reflected. So, all right, any other questions?
The reason why I came here is because I write screenplays. I never wrote a graphic novel, but I had this idea burning in my head. On my way here, I was writing, stuff down for this graphic novel. And I get things.
Do you hear voices too?
Yeah, I hear voices. And I see pictures. It's crazy. And I'm working on a screenplay right now. And I'm like, should I just work on this graphic novel? Because it's screaming louder in my head.
Well, it depends. Which is the deadline that's first?
I want to get the screenplay done with, and then, but the graphic novel is like, come on, let's get pictures and dialogue.
While you're shopping the screenplay, you can work on the graphic novel. I mean, the formats, they're different, but there's also so many similarities. Like a script, a comic script, it would be easy to transfer. It was very, comic writing, writing the script came very natural to me because I had a background in screenwriting and playwriting. It's a very natural transition. So one thing you could do is finish the screenplay, shop it, and then write the graphic novel. But if you just absolutely have to do the graphic novel, you can then flip it, write the graphic novel. And while the artist, unless you're going to draw yourself, but an artist can take months to draw that, and then you can finish the screenplay and shop that.
This is where an outline comes in too, because it's a really quick way to zip through all the points if you want to get it on paper, and then you can come back to it because it's all waiting there, and it's all in order, and it's all right there for you to come back to. You are welcome to, we're going to be signing and selling books and signing over on the side here, so we will continue some other discussion. Yeah, definitely come up. We can have time to take maybe one more question.
Where for this successful industry, where do you find the most success in the self-publishing field, or self-publishing aspect, or with like DC and Marvel? Where do you find the most success as self-publishing?
For me, it's been the indie comics because they're small presses. It's a small group of people, and they help me. They let me pick my release date, and because I'm doing LGBTQ and working with characters like transgender protagonists, writing those press releases can be really tricky. You have to be really careful. You don't. There are certain ways that you need to write things, and working with the small press has allowed me to do that and do that very carefully and just kind of blossom just creatively. I get to work on what I want. There's more freedom for me, so that's where I've had the most success on all fronts, creative and professional level.
I'm interested in your question because it's become something that's very personal in my house, because my husband is an Army guy and then his wife's a creative, and there was always that tension between us. So how to balance your life. And I'm going to give you sort of a non-answer but a very true answer to your question, which is how do you define the success and the intrinsic value? Because I have to say that starting my own business, being an editor with a vision, having an idea about where I wanted to go, the satisfaction that has come from establishing your company, putting your books out, and doing whatever the hell you want to is an incredibly satisfying experience, and I recommend it to anybody. That being said, you do learn that there are consequences to anything that you want, and there are consequences to everything that you do, but there's a certain satisfaction that comes from that lesson too, because at the end of the day, you've answered to yourself. And now, if the success in terms of money or the success in terms of recognition, it's how you measure that success. Working for the big two, these companies are fantastic. Working for these larger companies that can get your message out there, I don't think anybody would say that that's not a measure of success. If your idea is to get it distributed to far and wide, to get everybody on board with your idea of reading your stuff. So however you define that success, I think that leads to an answer to that question. And when it comes to money, my understanding is that even the people who work for these top companies are not necessarily pulling in a lot of bank. What's interesting to me is there's a new sort of awareness that as creators of properties, as creators of intellectual property, there's something very satisfying about even having been published by these bigger companies. A lot of these really successful writers and artists are coming back and doing their own creator-owned stuff because they're finding that process and the barriers to getting this intellectual IP out in as true a way as possible, that ends up being even more satisfying or much more of a goal. So it doesn't quite answer that question, but how do you measure your success and what's going to take you there? And I think that changes how you go.
I was just going to say, comics themselves don't actually make you money. What makes you money is ancillaries, in all honesty. Because, okay, I'm looking right here to the left, Captain America. Captain America comics do not make money. Captain America movies make money. Captain America posters, t-shirts, shoelaces for kids, pajamas. That's what makes the money. It's the IP.
You have those pajamas, don't you?
I do not anymore. I grew out of them. There was a voice in my head that wanted them.
I saw the underwear at Target. I told you.
Okay, so that's the whole thing. So it's like she was saying, creating an IP. Basically, doing your own independent comics usually aren't going to make you a ton of money unless you're working with somebody like Image Comics or something like that. But again, as Enrica said, it's you have to measure what is your success. My measure of success is, can I make my mortgage this month? I'm being completely frank. That is my measure of success. If between my day job, my freelance, and comics, if I can make my mortgage, woohoo! I've done it another month. If I end up selling one of the IPs that I've worked on, M3 or any of the other IPs that I've worked on, fantastic, great. Hopefully there'll be a movie someday and I can retire, but the voices won't let me. So it's a matter of what's important to you. Some people want to write comics because they want to write Captain America, or they want to write Black Panther, or they want to write, whomever. Other people want to write comics because they want to tell stories. If you just want to tell stories, then just tell stories. It doesn't matter whether it's a screenplay or a graphic novel or a novel or whatever. It's just a matter of getting a story out there. And as Jennie was saying, screenplays and graphic novels are very similar because it's both visual storytelling. So I think if you can go back and forth, and it's going to be cake for you. And very good luck with it. But I think it's a matter of just tell your story, just tell a story, and whether it's Captain America or it's your own character, just tell the story that you want to tell.
Okay, we are out of time. Very really quickly, we're going to tell you where to find us. Find us at redstylo.com, redstylo.com. We're going to be signing over to the side here, so if you need that again.
You can find me at ericaschultzwrites.com. It's Schultz, SCHULTZ, so ericaschultzwrites.com.
And I'm at jenniewood.com, and that's JENNIEWOOD, and I've got cards over here too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.